starting into in 1993, was it? 1992, yeah, when I went to Cambridge. Again, it was just fronting up and having a look around, and again taking, as I did yesterday, I brought in a couple of books here, and one of the books that I took into Cambridge was this one. It's called, I don't know where you find it, I just sort of found it in probably a chemist shop or something sometimes, but called Winning as Kid Stuff. And just read a couple of things out of it, along with a couple of other books I've taken with me. But and these were some comments from kids. One of us said, winning is working hard and being proud. That was somebody called David, doesn't matter about their names, I guess. A good sport is someone who doesn't sook when they lose. Losing is nothing if you try your best. It was somebody else. And some points about some other things that they were saying was things like making an excuse means you can't take it. It means that, this is about excuses, when you don't win you make an excuse why you didn't, so you won't be embarrassed. Somebody called Angie at age 11. And another one from Ian at 12 is an excuse is thinking up something so you don't have to face the music. And some other ones on team. Quite a few here. That a team is a group and they work hard together and look good. That was Becky at 11. A team is a group of people that can work together without being angry at each other. It was Yvette at 10. Cal at 12 said a whole bunch of people together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. This is quite good, I think, from Chris of 9. A team is a mob of people cooperating. Sounds like some sheep or something. A group of people who help each other and have fun. A team is something that you can count on. And I guess this was one that was quite pertinent to the Cambridge situation in that year anyway, which is a real team is one group, not a group of ones. And I think that was Dennis. I don't know how old he was, probably about 3, I guess. I guess when I spoke to people and about this sort of winning as kid stuff, that was one of the themes that was continued right through the whole time that we're there, and that we have been working there. And I hope it's something that you're always doing with your group. And got a couple of bits of little video here. One's actually from this New Zealand group again. The title said sort of a model. Well, I don't think there is one model, and that's why I don't think it's certainly not possible just to say, right, this is what Cambridge did in 1993, and this is what Cambridge did in 1994, so this is the model. In fact, the same thing didn't follow between 1993 and 1994. And I think that's the other thing, when you're working with a group of people, they are not the same people 1 year later. Everybody changes all the time. So somebody from 1 year, between the time they leave, for example, from the boat race until you pick them up again 6 months later, there've been 6 months of changes in their life. Could be anything in the family, could be anything at the university, could be anything in the job, there's whole lots of things that change. So the person is different. And so it's pretty well impossible to actually have the same model, the same development that you're going to have from the time before. And I know in 1982, for example, we were making this mistake with the 8 that we had in 1982. I can remember clearly that it was always, oh, we didn't do this last year, or oh, it used to feel like this last year, and this year it's like this. And this went on for quite a while until we said, look, just forget about last year, this is this year. And once that was out of the way, and once you were seeing that this was now another crew, another group of people, even if it was 7 of the same people, it was actually another group of people working together and creating something different, then you could get on with the job, and then you could go fast with them. But if you just kept all the time looking to the one that was supposedly the right plan from the year before, it didn't make it necessarily the right plan for the year after. And so it's really important that you have to look at the circumstances and just allow the plan to develop. You must have a game plan, surely, but you have to have flexibility within that to allow the development to occur that will bring you to the best possible situation. There's certainly not, as I said, not one model, but there's certainly similarities in the things that you tend to do to bring about some success. And you'll have memories of your successes and failures and ups and downs, but you know, I remember very clearly still the first Club 8 that I had that won. This was, I don't know when it was, 1968 or something like this. Certainly remember the 1982 8 because it was the first 8 of a national, well, not because it was the first 8, because it was just a really neat group of people that really achieved something. And so I really remember them. I remember the Swiss double from 1988 that won on a silver medal quite unexpectedly. Remember the Swiss Junior 8 from this year, because I was working with a lot with them last year. And these are the sort of things that you know, can isolate as sort of major things that you enjoyed being involved with. And at the moment, anyway, I mean, can't really differentiate between the two Cambridge boats, the two Cambridge groups of people, because I mean, that's really recent. Maybe in a few years' time, you think more about one than the other. But I think the most important thing is that, you know, that it's the type of people that you're involved with at the time that you remember. And so some crews that I've had that have won or have done quite well, I don't remember them very well if the people were sort of faceless or personality-less or something like this, or character-less or something. I mean, I know you can't achieve very high levels with this type of person, but you know, sometimes you get, you know, if your feeling is that this is a real vibrant group of people, and those are the ones that you always remember. And generally, for me, it's the people that you had a lot of fun with. But anyway, to go through some of the things that I think are really important, and I mean, they're just the sort of list that was run through yesterday, but hopefully I can just expand on some of the ideas or give some examples of things that happen with the group. You know, first of all, of course, I mean, you have to have a plan, and that plan has training in it. It has the camps that you're going to go to. It has the fixtures that you're going to go to. It has and it has the weekly plan that you're going to use as you go through. And you know, for me, the training is first of all, it's the first thing that you have to have a look at. And when I started to look at the Cambridge situation, I knew there was a boat race. The person but I just had to think, well, you know, what does a boat race involve? What's going to be different about this than any other sort of race? So I have a good friend who used to be the German lightweight coach, and he's now in the German sort of presidium, and Wolfgang Fritsch, and I was at his house, and we just sat down and decided, you know, what we thought was the sort of things that you know, you do for over 6 months to prepare a crew for a long race, like 3 times 2,000 metres instead of 1. And so I think there's still some places if you want to go up. There's plenty of room. So we decided that we needed a lot of endurance, obviously, and we also decided we needed to develop as much power as we could from the people. So that meant setting out in 1993 anyway to build up to about 100 minutes of continuous rowing, and I think we started about 80 minutes in the sort of the first training, and that sort of just kept adding on until at the the longest, at the point in which we want to do the greatest amount of mileage. So it was we worked by minutes rather than miles, but it was about 100 minutes that people were doing. And with the power, we wanted to develop power for the length of the race, and so we used weight training programs that we hope would develop this, and we used power training on the water, which has become quite a major element of the training program there, and also a lot of other places, of course. And then this year, as Peter was talking about last night, you have to keep moving on, and the next year we moved out, kept on going out until we got to 110 minutes of continuous rowing. I don't know if it's we were going to go any further than that, but that was the distance that it was set to from one year to the next, and so that, you know, they got that real solid base of training done over a long period of time, and that didn't mean sort of 110 minutes from the time you got on the water to the time you got off. That meant 110 minutes from the time you started to row continuously, and you got to the other end, turned around, and came back again. And so it doesn't include all the sort of if you're doing a few exercises and things before you started. That was the continuous amount of work that you did at the time. And so that was the type of endurance that we felt were necessary, and I said the power that needed to be developed for these people. To go along with the training, we were testing regularly, lactate testing, and from that provided the confidence for the people training that the training was working. And for me, that's as a coach anyway, that's the main reason for the testing. It's not a selection tool. It's just to show people that they are improving or they're not improving. And if they're not improving, you can also do something about it. If they're overtraining or if they've had some other problems. And so we had these tests at a regular interval. This is not a Cambridge one, but it's a similar sort of thing to similar sort of setup to what we're doing there. This is one from the New Zealand this year. But basically, here was the first test here, and the second test and the third test. There were some others, but this is a 3 tests here anyway. Through here, and the pulses that went along with them. There's the lactate levels on 3 tests at the bottom part of the graph, 2 millimoles to 4 millimoles, and this is the pulse levels between the over 3 tests as well, from test 1, test 2, test 3. So obviously that's the type of thing you want to see if you're running some tests. You're seeing the improvement, you're seeing the pulse being moved to the right side, and you can see the lactate being moved to the right side. So that gives this person confidence to know that the training program is going in the right direction for him in this case, and it also shows me that that the training that we're providing for him or suggesting he should do is also working. So from this, I give the pulse levels that they should train at then for the next period. So after this period here, I'll give them a pulse level for I actually was just calling it 75 and 80% work with the Cambridge people, but it's all the same idea as U2, U1 and AT work. And so this was the levels that we set, and I just write up a sheet, and so that when people were training at U2, they had this pulse. When they were training at U1, they had this one, and when they had AT work, they were on that. So they had their pulses, and they could go ahead and train at them, and train at them. And once they trained at them and they did the things that you asked them to do, which is again what Peter was saying last night, if the coach says row a race in a particular way and you row it that way, then the coach has got something to work back from. So if we said, okay, this is what pulse I think you should work at, that they would do that, and then you get the result, and then you can confirm or change or whatever you want to do with the next sector of the work. All right, so that was, I think, the testing was an important aspect of the development of the training and gave people the confidence in the training. So that pulse levels were set and also a level was set on the erg as well, on the output level, so that people were trying to match up their pulse with their output, so that there was a wattage component to what they were doing, not just the pulse. So they were trying to be more efficient, trying to see how their efficiency was developing between their pulse and their workload. And so that was continued through. And then I'll say a retest 1 month later or whatever, and then carried on. It wasn't that easy, I suppose. People thought that I knew how to do all these things, and I managed to convince them that was the case, I suppose. But I'd brought all the equipment from Switzerland, and I'd bring it across in the bag, and I'd have myself set up with 10 ergs all around the place, and a trolley that I could roll around every bit with, and at the end I'd set people going one minute after the next, so that I have time between each test to take the blood. And so as soon as somebody would stop, I'd zoom in and get some blood from the air, put it in the capillary tube, put it into the little container, shake it up, put it in have these labels done, and then as soon as that was done, move to the next one. So to keep doing this for 30 tests basically, because it was three times 10 minutes we were doing at the time. So that would keep you busy for about an hour and a half, without too much of a pause really. So you know, and then you had to put it in ice it and put it in bring a couple of you know, those things you find in the fridge, put them between that, and take it back through. Never got checked by customs, but anyway, took it back to Switzerland, got it analysed, and set the results over the next night, and away they went carried on with the training. So it was a bit, well, it's a reasonably difficult job, but it was worth doing it, and that was good practice for me too, I guess. So there was that. There was also the ongoing assessment that we did with people, so that it wasn't just one thing that you were assessed on. So everybody had a chance to shine at something, to show that they were good in a number of different things that we used. Obviously we had, well, not obviously, but we did have erg tests. I think there was about two or three 2,500 metre tests and a 5,000 metre test. We had pairs trials that we rode for the national trials, and also some of our own that we did at Nottingham. We had seat racing when we were in Banyolas. That was pretty high power stuff. Raced at Fours Head, had a trial eights race, and then had some fixtures against two other, one set of fixtures before we made a decision. But and even had interviews when we were in Banyolas, and sat down and talked to everybody for anywhere between 5 or 10 minutes to an hour, depending on how much people wanted to talk to us about. So we, you know, we had a pretty good idea of what the people were, how they all worked, how they fitted together, so we had a you know, pretty good dossier on what sort of things we're going to, which people were going to use, but it was an objective, you know, basically it was an objective testing system. The interviews were just basically for, you know, the information on how the crew might work together. So. You know, the group development of this, or the group dynamics, was interesting, and that what we tried to do was hard on some people, because we didn't select crews until quite late. I think it was about 5 weeks before the boat race that we actually sort of said, right, this is the boat race crew. And in the first year, I think there's about 14 people that, I mean, there was a basis of about 5 people, and then of the other 3, there was about probably a large number of people could have been in the other 3 seats. And so this was quite testing, I guess, for them. But the big thing about that one was that the whole squad really worked together. And so there wasn't this, well, there was as little as possible anyway of this delineation between the one group and the other group. And I think that was really important. And I think, you know, I remember there was the first race, the Goldie race was held, and then when the major supporters of the blue boat were the Goldie boat, and when it looked like the blue boat was moving ahead and looking like they were going to solidify their position in the race, it was, you know, the big cheer came from these guys watching in a tent somewhere, and so that, you know, it was a real cohesive unit that was. But it wasn't just the 8; it was the whole area, the whole group around about it as well. So I guess try to get the strength and the weaknesses out of, try to work on people's strengths and try to help them to overcome some of the weaknesses that they would have, and was really working in a positive way. We also, I think, it was objective. It was fair. There was fair treatment. Some people needed time away. For example, one of the guys. Could only row on some days, and he was, you know, be worried that if he didn't row on these other days, that was going to jeopardise the situation. And we had total belief and trust in him, and that if he wasn't going to be able to row, he'd still find time in the day to row an hour or 40 minutes or whatever on the erg. So that wasn't the problem. It was we knew people were training to whatever possibilities that they could. Most of the group was always there, but some people couldn't always come. The other one, that there was sort of no priority for supposedly the best people. I remember the first year that I think it took Richard Phelps about to Christmas to sort of realise that really just because he'd been in the Olympic 8 didn't mean to say he was going to get this one. So, and then he really had to sort of knuckle down and make his his seat the same as everybody else did. And so it was the same with Torsten and Peter when they came in this year. Roger had said to them, "Oh, you'll do an erg test when you arrive," sort of thing, and they sort of said, "Oh yes, okay." And then when they did arrive, they did do an erg test. But, having been on holiday for about 1 month, they both scored about 8 minutes, I think, on 2,500 metres, which wasn't very exciting. But you know, they arrived, and first question was, "Okay, well, you know, what time do you want to do the test in the morning?" And they sort of said, "Oh, well, you know, 9 o'clock." I said, "Good, right, 9 o'clock." So we had the test, and so you know, I think that was the important thing. I mean, it was certainly not saying that we weren't going to use these people unless they followed the rules or whatever. It was saying that we would be stupid on any of our parts to think that these guys weren't going to be an integral part of the unit, because they were really good. But there was a point that everybody had to make their way in the right way, and so that was an important part of it. So getting the best out of the people. I guess the special case last year was Torsten and Peter. Perhaps just mention a little bit about that now, and that they had quite a tough time when they arrived. I think the first day Torsten was there, somebody broke into the car and stole his computer. But they had quite a hard time of it, and they also didn't. I mean, their English was good to speak, obviously, but it's a bit like anybody speaking a foreign language. Some of the understanding isn't so great, and you know, they had quite a difficult. I mean, I'm sure the Cambridge guys had enough trouble listening, understanding what I was saying, let alone two Germans. But you know, they did have quite a hard time, but on the other hand, they did keep themselves quite separate from the group, and so we had quite a long time when they didn't really. They weren't really part of the group, and we had to manage this. Well, it was quite, and we had to manage it. John and Sean obviously had the most to do with this, because they were here all the time. I was only here, last year I think it was 8 weeks or something out of the whole 6 months. So they bore the brunt of this. But so you know, the situation was that they come from German 8. They were world champions, and we had to handle that situation. And basically, it really got down to, we had quite a good talk with them just before Christmas. And you know, if they didn't really want to row the 8, well, that was fine with us. They could practice in the pair and get ready for the next season. So you know, that. Once we talked to them about this situation, that, you know, if they really wanted to be involved, well, they had to be involved in the way that we were working. Then things changed quite a lot, and when we were in Banyolas, that was one of the sort of the stars of the hat throwing was Torsten, and he really emerged then as a leader of the group, and he was a really easygoing guy anyway, so he's a really neat person. But he didn't emerge into the situation until the sort of the way was if you like, the cards were on the table, and then he was able to sort of push him to move himself into the situation that he was obviously able to handle really well. So he was, you know, once they came around, they were great. And earlier on, we didn't row them anywhere near the stern of the boat until Banyolas, really, because we wanted to. No, that's not right. We actually rowed them in the stern of the boat in the trial 8s, and they got beaten. So, but we actually kept them. They basically rowed most of the time towards the bow, and because we wanted to keep the pattern going that we knew we believed in and we wanted to develop. And but once we came to Banyolas, then things were obviously changing, and I could really see that Torsten, even though he didn't row that well, was for me, just looking at him in the boat, that he was obviously going to be the stroke of this crew. For one thing, he didn't really fit in any other seat that sort of moved very well, but he was always out of kilter with everybody else in other places. But I mean, he's 6'6" and probably about knees and legs about 5'6" sort of thing. But so he always looked really small on the boat, and he does sort of, and he, as you saw on the video, even though he could set the other people up really well, but he didn't actually do quite the same as other people when he was for himself. But so he really became the leader. I mean, there was the president, John Bernstein. He was also a different type of leader. But as far as the sort of the leader in terms of, if you like, the easygoing, fun type leader, the major kid in the group, I suppose, that happened to be Torsten. And after a while, Peter would say, we do a little bit of coaching on ergs, and Peter say, I don't believe in coaching on the erg. No, it's different on the water. So okay, that's all right. We didn't bother. But it was really interesting that between when we were getting ready to race, he was on the erg, sort of wanting to get coached. So about 4 or 5 months later, and it was quite interesting. And they also really gave good feedback once he got going. I know Peter was. He'd be quite often at Ely, also down at the Tideway. If things were going well, he'd sort of give you a bit of a signal with a thumb up, and when it was bad, he'd sort of put the thumb down. And I mean, it's just giving you a bit of feedback from his point of view from in the boat. And also at Nottingham, just before the last training camp before the boat race last year, there was something missing around the front end of the stroke. It was it wasn't really connected up firmly enough from the. There was this thing that we were talking about, getting the blade set, but there was too much time between the setting of the blade and the moving and the maintenance of the pressure on the blade, and so he could really recognise that, and we could see it from outside the boat, and some of the other guys couldn't quite know what he was talking about, and so, but so he just kept on working on this point that he was on about, and that it really worked out very well like this. So once they'd come around to the full circle, then any comments that they were making towards the boat were really positive. But before that, when they hadn't come around, then the comments towards the boat were most often negative. So there was a whole sort of a process of I don't know what you'd call it, but just sort of a development of them into the group, and then they became more or less the focal point of what was happening. So that was a really important one. The team coaching thing was really important for me. A lot of people don't operate too well, I don't think, in a situation where they aren't the only person working with the crew. But I think it's a really good system, and it's also one where certainly it makes life a lot easier for you if you can handle it, because a lot of people aren't able to commit themselves now to 7 days a week rowing, 6 days a week of rowing. And if you can develop somebody with you, if you can have somebody with you that you really can work with, and I think it's a really good way to go. Things aren't quite well in New Zealand anyway anymore. People haven't got the time that they can give that they perhaps needed to. So I'm trying to develop that idea there as well, that people should be more sort of a team coaching type situation. So I was really lucky with the two tremendous people that have been involved with me in Cambridge, and they're also excellent coaches. And so that was, they did all the coaching. I came in occasionally and just oversee what was going on and kept the training program coming in, but they were doing the graft. They were there during the day and during the week, and mostly on the weekends as well. So that was really great to have them. Nobody felt threatened by the other people, and as far as nobody had sort of big enough egos that they had to be in charge, and everybody got along really well, and that was the best for the team. And the other thing about it, of course, that if three coaches are all talking about the same thing, but talking in a different way about the same thing, it just gives the crew members so much more scope to understand, because they were going to relate better to one person to another, And so long as the message is the same, then there's no problem whatsoever. In fact, it's a great way to work, I'm sure. I suppose it's something, I don't suppose you call it self-belief, and maintaining this as you go. And you keep with that. And for example, there's a lot of, before the race in 1993, we had a training camp planned for Nottingham. For me that was the logical thing to do. I didn't know how fast these guys were, and for me to find out how fast they were, I needed to be on a measured course and get the splits for 500 metres or 750 metres or 1,000 metres or whatever, so that you can go into a race knowing what the actual speed of the people might be. And so that was one of the reasons for having a training camp there. Also didn't think it was a great idea to be at one place for about 2 weeks. And so that was a reason. And so when you start to read the paper about what you're supposedly doing and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, it's really important that that doesn't interest you at all, and that you maintain where you're going, and you know why you're doing it, and you keep doing it. It's a bit like Peter was talking last night. You've got a race plan. You're not racing. You've got 6 lanes out here racing, but you're only racing one lane. That's you. So you've got a race plan and you're doing it. And there's 5 other people out there doing races and they're doing it. But and if one starts to look to the other, the one who's doing the looking isn't going to have such a good plan as the one who just sticks to his own or her own. And so that was the same sort of idea, I'm sure, is that if you've decided that you're going to do something, and in this case it was do this camp at Nottingham, you're not going to be influenced by what you might read in the paper. And I was, as regards the press, I was quite interested to start to read things, never having been involved in a boat race before. I really couldn't understand that press really couldn't see that the 1993 crew was quite fast, and there was sort of no sort of recognition from having them. They were all out in these boats, these big boats out there, and they were all watching. And then they read about the next day how, nothing about it was quite nice, I suppose. But it was just interesting for me to know that these people didn't really have I didn't think anyway, a really astute idea of what might be going to happen in a race. So obviously there's a lot of money to be made, and I should have done something about it, which would be nice. But anyway, so. I think whatever, you know where you're going, you stick with that. You stick with that belief of where you're at, and you don't change once you're into this. One other thing was, which I'm basically going through some of the list that's the reason why I listened to yesterday, well, not the only reason, but one reason for listening yesterday was to try to follow that through today and also to last night. But one of the things that was one of the lists from yesterday had visualisation, concentration, relaxation, and that was one of the things that we really went on a lot about. Visualisation, 1993, after training on the tideway in the last few days, guys would just come back, sit at the house, put on the TV with the tape of the one that we were showing yesterday, with the that 26, 28 stroke minute type thing of that New Zealand 8, and they just sit and watch it, and they'd go out the next row and just carry that rhythm or carry that idea to the next row again. And so they used visualisation quite a bit in terms of how they thought they might or how they were going to continue with the development of their skills. And I think it's not a bad idea. I think it's quite good if you can get a good example. And for me too, I think I use video. I probably more just showing people examples of good things rather than perhaps a lot of analysis of bad faults. I think it's important that you present a positive image of what you're doing. So concentration is pretty clear, and relaxation. Relaxation is easy enough, I suppose. I remember going to, in 1993, went to, when we were in Nottingham, went down to the bowling alley, and some of the guys had a lot of fun. Dirk, so I think he's through the first 3 or 4 down the gutter, and but ended up hitting the most strikes, and so he was pretty excited. And again, it was just this idea of having some fun, getting out, getting away. But it was always a real competition type thing that was going on the whole time with them, even if it was always in fun. And I think that was another aspect to them. Pre-race was talked about. Quite a lot of things we talked about yesterday regarding sort of the pre-race situation. And for me, as a coach, as I say, I'd never been involved with a boat race, so I used to run the length of the course a couple of times a day, or up and back a couple of times a day, just to get the feel of the. I mean, okay, it's quite different from being underwater in it, but at least I had the feeling of the length of it, also the how it was divided up. The bends were pretty similar, whether they were the ones I was making or the ones that were on the water, and I would try and see, how evenly I could run it, and then divide that up into, let's say, I had it divided up into 3 bits really, because it was sort of, for me, it was 3 times 2,000 metres, and so the race was more or less divided up into those 3 bits that I'd sort of worked out as I was running the course, and so this was pretty useful. It meant I didn't have to do it the year after when I sort of got fatter and didn't have as much energy, but I did that the first year, and I thought that was pretty beneficial. It also, when you're running, or when you're running along, you actually, you have a lot of other thoughts about the race and what people might do in it and how it might be, but just actually travelling that actual distance, say there and back, and then doing it again in the evening, and so you just sort of got a bit more to grips with what the race might be about, and it was also helpful in actually setting up a race plan for whatever circumstances might arise. But as far as the race itself, because there was no, I had no history of the race, and that was basically the way we played it. There was no history. There was no 17 losses or whatever it was, or 27 or 10 or 5, I don't know how many it was. There was a crew that was started to get organised in September or whatever it was of 1992, and what that crew was trying to achieve by 1993, whenever the date was, that was the only bit that counted, and all the other bits didn't really have anything much to do with that one. And I think that was the same as was also said last night, that once the world champion for 1994, when it becomes the 1st of January 1995, you're no longer the 1994 world champion. So it's finished. It was great at the time, but it was over with, and it was the same. It's the same with the, if you like, the bad results. They were over as well. And so you have every start is a restart, and every situation is a new one. And so it's this situation where you start anew. Everything is different. Each time you do it, it's different from the one before, or the one that's going to come next. So that was one thing about it. Quite often people have big meetings before races. Sometimes they don't. And I guess one of the things that in the 1993 one, because there was, even though we said there was no, this was only involving this part, there was still the people really needed to know, because they'd been in other, some of them had been in other boat races and lost. They still really know what the group was about, the ones that they were racing in this time. And so they did actually have, we were just sitting down around having a meal one night, and we actually started to just talk about basically believing and why people were going to do this race. And I just kicked off and asked somebody to say, why this race was really important to him tomorrow and what was going to happen type thing. And he started to talk about technical things that were going to happen, etc. And I said, no, not that. Just tell us what it is about this that's really important to you, and why you want to do well, etc., etc. And so we ended up with sort of 8 people just basically telling the other people what it was really important about the tomorrow to them. And it wasn't all sort of hyped up or anything. But when they went out of that, everybody had so much more belief in each other that just it really made this, it sort of gave them an extra sense of purpose. It made everybody quite relaxed. Everybody slept well, everybody was ready to go the next day. And that was 1993. 1994, I think it was hardly anything at all. It was, just sort of a bit of organisation. And I remember with Peter, he was, with Thorsten, I was driving back from one of the training sessions with him, and I said, what do you do in Germany before races? And he says, oh, well, I don't really do anything really, because once you're selected in the team, well, you know what you're there for, and so there's nothing really to talk about. So so we more or less went along with this sort of situation that everything was under control as far as they knew what they had to do. They'd done it lots of times during training for a long period of time. They had total belief in each other, and that was the situation. And sort of basically just you had to go there a certain amount of time before, so you wouldn't get lost in the traffic. But basically, it was sort of filling in time really. You're just sort of hanging around and sort of making idle conversation, and a few guys going to the toilet, a few hanging around here, and a couple of guys sitting on an erg, and sort of just waiting for the time to go. And it was sort of time to go, and people were off. And even this parade down when you take the oar down, one person at a time. It was a bit the same. He was the last one, and he was saying okay to go now, sort of thing. One day I said, no, you better wait a moment, the other guy's not down there yet. He says, oh, okay. So, and they say, okay, you can go now, right? Oh, good, see you later. So gets his oar and goes down and gets in the boat, and just really, really well in control of a situation. And that, I guess, came out of the whole development over a long period of time. Tons of desire in any successful group of people. One of the training times in 1993, one of the New Zealand rugby players, he was a captain for a while, Buck Shelford. He was down at the Tideway one day, came over with a friend of mine, and after they'd been for a row, he came in and was sort of talking around with the guys, and then he decided he'd sort of fight you and say a few words. Seems he likes saying a few words, but anyway, he was talking about his role in playing when he was playing rugby, how he was playing really, really hard, and he was sort of saying if he was going to go into a ruck and somebody had their arm up like this when he was going for the ruck, well, he was going to go straight in there and smash his ribs, because he said if his arm's up there, he's inviting me to go in there and crush his ribs. So these guys are sort of, well, who's this guy talking here? He's sort of pretty ferocious sort of character. And Dirk said to me after, he said, oh gosh, this I wouldn't like to sort of come across him in an alley somewhere at night. He said he'd kill me. And but on the other side, but Dirk sort of said, there was this. He sort of pointed out sort of the ruthless side of the desire of winning. I mean, Buck was going to the situation where he'd actually he wanted to get this person off the field, basically. So there was a lesser one come on and take his place. And I think that you can't do that in a rowing boat, obviously, but there's a little bit about the same of really taking advantage of a crucial moment in a situation, and really not just if you've got a chance to take sort of 1 metre or one, you take 2 or you take 3, and you take the whole amount of somebody. Peter, again, talking last night, was talking about the idea that if he's not allowed to attack more secret, not allowed to attack the opposition sculler until he can see that the stern's, if the stern's running on like this, he doesn't do any, there's no point in him attacking him. But as soon as the stern's starting to check like this, off, he's in for the kill. Because obviously the other person's the boat's not going as well as it should be. And so he can then take advantage of the situation. So it's you know, I mean, okay, one's a physical game, it's sort of combat type of a situation, and ours is not. But there are elements there which are really just taking advantage of a situation when it arises, and just making sure that you know you get the maximum out of it. And I think this is you know, this was the thing with the Cambridge 8 in the '93 especially. You know, that once they had one seat, there had to be two, and it had to be 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 until it was totally, until they had complete control of the race. And you know, they broke these records through for I don't know what it was, 2 or 3 on the points, or 2 points, I don't know what it was. And perhaps they hadn't taken both records by quite as much. They might have got the whole records. I have no idea. But you know, their desire was so great to get the biggest chunk of territory, if you like, every time there was a possibility, that to put themselves in a situation where it was, you know, basically going to be impossible to be caught. And so that, you know, this attitude of really just of capitalising on the opposition and making them every advantage out of any situation whatsoever was really important to the way that the people were going to, or the desire that they had to win a race. Anyway, doesn't sound quite as exciting as yesterday. But, it certainly was an exciting time to be coaching these people. You know, you just develop a real sort of bond with people, and as I say, the people who we had the hardest time with, in the end, well, I mean, have a good relationship with a lot of people, but you know, in the end, that was the people you had the hardest time with in the long run, in the early stages, that you know, you really got the biggest response from in the end. And I think that's really important, that sometimes that people give you a hard time. People. You just wish they would go away and they wouldn't stay in your crew sometimes. And often that's the person you really want in the end, because it's these people that quite often don't seem to give you any trouble, and they're really nice and they do all the things you ask them for. Maybe they're going to do that for you and you go racing. But maybe it's the spirit of people who sometimes are a bit of a pain. That these are the sort of people that you're really going to get the most value out in the long run. So from just want to just run a little bit of video through to just illustrate some of these points. Maybe we should have shoved it in before everybody went to sleep. But some of the things this first one is actually not the Cambridge guys, but it's a good example. It's the same type of thing that I see with the Cambridge guys when they were doing these types of things. This is a guy who rode bound the 8 in 1983 and 84, and rode bound in the Cox 4 in 86. I think he was 19 then, so he wasn't too old when he was rowing for his medals. Not very big either, as you can see, but the sort of desire that was there was the sort of desire that you saw with the all the time with people with testing, people with whatever. And this was the type of thing that was evident with the Cambridge people. Certainly not the type of thing I got with New Zealanders at the moment, which is a bit of a pain. You know, he's trying to get in the boat, and that's how they were trying to get in the boat, to just giving the last ounce of what they could give. Right. Of all these things, just got a couple of bits of video of cruise racing. We talked yesterday about, you know, as a result of all these, I mean, I know I haven't sort of gone through technical developments and gone through, but the technical developments were just what we were talking about yesterday. I mean, you just kept on and on and on and on about what had to be done. And, you know, we just sort of kept hammering on to the technical points that we were working with, and we didn't relent until it was getting somewhere near it, and then you give a bit of a break, and then you just come straight back on, you know, be on it all the time, until it came until it came right. You know, it was sort of a bit of a crash course, because it's only 6 months you've got, and really the technical things didn't really come through till probably 3 months into the training that things started. This is in the first boat, didn't really start to work till then. And I know from my, you know, for example, in Banyola, so I'd had coached everybody from the coxswain seat in a 4, because I saw things weren't really working, and so I got in a 4, lay down the bow, and then I said, okay, we've got 2 people to row, and so I could actually really feel what they were doing, and they were just basically not exaggerating too much, nothing going on. It was just absolutely, there was really no development of boat speed, of blade acceleration, or whatever you want to call it, wasn't there. So, you know, I spent time with everybody, rowing maybe one person on their own, or then they'd row in 2 of them, then they have the 4 of them going, and then I'd move the stern pair back to the bow pair, so I could really feel them better than if they were sitting at the stern. And so I'd really work with them to make sure that I could really feel them moving the boat, and really I mean, I didn't know what they were looking like. It didn't really matter at that point. I've seen enough of them looking from the outside, so I really wanted to feel what was going on from inside, and really to understand or get help then to understand what was really necessary. And so, you know, that was pretty hard for a lot of them, because you know, I mean, I couldn't even see. You're just sitting there and you're just saying, hey, there's nothing happening, what's happening? And then you'd catch something that was starting to work, and you'd say, right, now you're onto something there. And so you just keep on to that until some development occurred. And so, you know, the technical sort of, well, I suppose the intensiveness of the technical coaching was quite something, I think, for a lot of people, because we were so insistent that if we wanted to win something, that it had to be done a certain way, and this way it was the way that we decided on, and it could have been some other way, but that's not the point. The point being that it had to be done in a certain way, and that we weren't going to relent until people could see their way out of somewhere. And once that had sort of occurred, then things started to move on. But I say there was about a 3-month period where, you know, it was sort of touch and go here as to whether really something was going to happen. And so you really had to sort of get right involved with the whole thing, and which for me meant coxing. I don't think I got around to rowing, but I certainly got right in the boat to really feel what was going on. And that, you know, the technical development was just was that, and then the idea of just maintaining what you were trying to do on the sort of the in a small boat type situation or whatever, and you maintaining that through a whole length of 100 minutes or something like this. That was the point. And the other thing about the technical training, that I would think that most, I haven't got a graph or anything, but most of the training was done in pairs. From if you want to take the day 1, the day whatever it was, I think you'd find that on average that not on average, that the bulk of the training would have been in pairs. Probably then followed by an 8, but it would be debatable, probably between an 8 and a 4 after that. And so people weren't just sitting in an 8 and rowing their 100 minutes, they were actually having to produce something every stroke, because they were rowing in a pair. And if odd numbers, obviously somebody was in a single. But that was a lot of the training was in pair boats, leading to to get the best effect from to develop as much training possibilities as they could. No, this is a while ago, but we're sort of opened up to the recent videos. This thing that we're talking about, you're trying to get the sort of easy movement. This guy, you've seen it a bit lately, I mean, just on the earth here before. And this idea of this pretty comfortable sort of rowing, really. And I think it's pretty similar also to what you saw on some of the pictures you saw of the boat race as well. Okay, it's a scramble for 2,000 metres. It's a higher rate, but I think, you know, the pattern is of this type type of growing is pretty evident here as well.
Who are the other crews?
Well, this is Australia. I think it's Czechs, I think. Australia, New Zealand, France, I think, East Germany, and probably, can't remember who was on the other side. This guy actually ended up, he was running the first year in the Awesome Foursome. I think it was straightforward. This is in the middle of a big race, and I think you can see that the control of the people, the feeling that there's not a big rush on to the confidence in the people that are doing this type of growing. There's obviously bits where they don't look quite as good as other parts, but I think that that overall impression of ease of movement, even in the heat of a battle.
That's quite some recovery speed on the slide there.
Sorry?
Quite a recovery speed on the slide. Would you say that's into a part of the start?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's a race, so it's good. I think there's always a sort of round and round type movement of this more. A few bits starting to fall to pieces, of course, getting close to where you're heading for, but so same idea of sort of putting yourself out of range and then seeing if the others can get you. Now this guy here is quite brilliant at this type of rowing. He's coming in the last few hundred metres here, and it's certainly not, but it's certainly looking pretty effortless for us still. Few pieces, as I said, a few people falling to bits around it, but that's normal. Yeah, not bad time either for wooden oars and things.
The Surrey station, the bottom of the picture on And certainly the early advantage would seem to be with Cambridge. This, at the moment, is a repeat of the Goldie Ice race.
They got away cleanly, both crews. Very good. They're quite close together, but parallel.
Coming down Fulham Reach, and it will be interesting to see whether Samantha Benham can hold the Cambridge crew out so that she can turn right and force the adjustment for her opposite number, Martin Haycock. He doesn't go quickly enough with her.
Okay, so short, longer race obviously, so the rating's not going to be in the same region as the last one, but I think that you'll see that there's because there's a lower rate, you don't see the same sort of speed on of attack and speed of recovery that you saw in the other race, but I think there's quite a similarity to the way in which the race has been, the way in which people are rowing and the way in which the race has been being worked. And again, it's just continuous on and on movement without a stop. If you're watching the sterns, you can see the stern is running on. It's got which is what we're looking for. All the time during the training was to try and make sure that the stern was not checking, was not stopping, was not moving backwards, was just being picked up and moved on. Yeah, it's not that bad. Just along here is quite a good, again, quite a good piece of, I think the camera comes in a bit closer, and again you should get a good picture of the type of if you like, crew cohesion, rhythm, development of power that was in this crew. But so going back to one of the first things I said, I think training, continuous training that was over this period of time, over the 6 months, was major contribution to the ability to be able to sort of basically go one stroke quite relentlessly from one to the next, and that was the training that people did that was enabled them to do this. Okay, there's a certain technical skill that's being shown here, but the just ability to go for one stroke after the other for a long period of time was developed through the training.